Hello and welcome to Calls. This is the 2022 PGA Championship Data Dive Show. We have quite a bit to get into, but first I want to apologize to anyone that was watching live or was trying to watch the show earlier today. I did not realize that my stream had cut out. I was broadcasting during a thunderstorm, and I guess that altered the quality. So when I was trying to edit the video today, I realized that the audio was still going, but the video had lagged and would cut in and out. So I'm sure you got some funny looks from me trying to explain some things when the screen froze and all that stuff. So hopefully the audio still worked and you got the data that I was trying to get into. And also the stream cut short last night, so I am hoping that I've got everything fixed today. There is no thunderstorm, at least here, so hopefully that fixed everything. But if not, I will have to cut down the live stream to two services, YouTube and probably Twitch, and then upload to Rumble, but I'm still debating on that. But I'll definitely be on YouTube Live. So if that ever happens, please reach out to me in chat or on social media. That way I know what to expect or to help you all and try to fix it on the spot, and so on and so forth and on, and we're rambling. So but I wanted to apologize for that. Because of that, I'm going to plan on taking some extra time tonight, especially with it being a major week. We have a lot of data to dig into. I've been doing a lot of research today, looking forward to sharing some of that with you all as well. So without any further delay, all statistics provided tonight and every night are from fantasynational.com. It is simply the best tool out there. It's going to make you a much better gambler and much smarter DFS player. I can't say it any clearer than that. Go check them out. It is well worth the investment. In the descriptions to all three streaming services, there are links to my social media where I post some interesting information around the research that I do. I posted a little nugget of information today around bent green putting performance. And I will also be placing betting cards on social media during the week, usually Wednesday night after the show of the DFS Tactics. But I also post some research to baseball content that I have started doing that will be on Thursdays and Fridays, or at least the research. So if you want to be a part of that, make sure you give me a follow at the links in the descriptions of the videos. And then finally, we are live. Chat's open. Have you looked at any of the odds boards? Are there any players that you're thinking about firing off a wager on or already have? I know I've fired off a couple. Any early leans for DFS, any particular players or statistics that you want to see? We're here for all that, so join me in chat. So let's dig into the data for the 2022 PGA Championship. And it's a bit of a different start than normal to the Data Dive show. But this is some of the research that I have done today. Over here on the left are the PGA Championships that were played on bent grass surfaces. So 2020 TPC Harding Park, I listed the winner here. 2018 Brooks at Belle Reve, Jimmy Walker at Baltusrol. There were 5 going back to 2014. The 2 that you can't see, Whistling Straits and Valhalla, Rory and Jason Day. And then any PGA Championship that was played in between there, but not on a bent surface, I went and brought the player, the date, finish, and their events, but I did not bring their kind of umbrella stats because I was focused mainly on what you see here, the bent putting performance. And 2020 was the first year that the PGA was going to be moved to May like it is now, but with 2020 being the year that it was pushed back to August. So what you see here is that throughout the 5 years, the winners had played on bent surfaces earlier in the calendar year. 4 times for most of them. Jimmy Walker had played 5 bent green tournaments, and Rory had played 3. So average of 4 for all 5. I want you to take a look at some of these performances, especially Colin Morikawa, since he is quite consistently the worst putter of these 5. TPC Harding Park. So leading up to that event, the Memorial, he had lost 8 strokes on the greens, but he also had 2 tournaments where he gained 3.5 plus. I'll be a little bit of kind rounding here. I'll say 3.5. The Charles Schwab played at Colonial, which is where they'll will be next week. 3.5 there. He gained 4.5 at the Workday, which is coincidentally was played at the Memorial Golf Course. Now it's escaping me. Jack's Place, Muirfield, which is Muirfield. He gained 4.7 one week and then lost 8 the next. Colin Morikawa doing Colin Morikawa things. Of course, the irons were always great. But so look at the pattern here. You have 2 events that have been pretty high positive on bent green surfaces. 2018 at Belle Reve, you have Brooks, who has an 8.5 earlier in the year. Colin Morikawa, he got second his year. Brooks got second his year, 8.5, and then he had another tournament with 2.5 on the greens at the Travelers. You have Jimmy Walker in 2016 at Baltusrol. He had a 2.3 and a 2.4. The Masters, he finished in the top 30. We don't have that putting data. I think it would be fair to say that he had a decent performance on the greens. Maybe not 2, but decently positive, especially since he had some good putting form coming in. But we don't know. But still, 2 very good putting performances on bent greens coming into the PGA. Then you have Jason Day at the peak of his powers, gained 4, gained 7. He did lose 2.5 that year at the Memorial, and the Masters again. We don't have that data. And Rory in 2014 at Valhalla gained 5.5, gained 6, and then the Masters where he top 10'd. So all 5 of these winners have had performances of, again, I will be a bit of a generous rounder here. I'm going to say 2.5. 2 tournaments of 2.5 strokes plus on the greens on bent surfaces coming into the PGA tournament, not including the PGA itself. So what this is getting at, normally I don't put any putting statistics in the data model. Putting seems to be fairly fickle and changes from week to week, and it does so most notably, perfect example here with Colin Morikawa, the same golf course, back-to-back weeks, gains 4 and then gains 4.5, loses 8.5. That's a 12-shot swing. But it is what it is. That's why I don't usually put a whole lot of stock into putting. But there will definitely be a focus on bent green performance coming into this week, seeing this pattern here. Rich, how you doing? Mito, 15th in scrambling, 13th in shots gained approach. I like me some Mito. I was just going through the research that I've done around the past winners at the PGA Championship, specifically on bent greens, since they'll be on bent greens at Southern Hills. Which, by the way, Richard, glad to see you back. Haven't seen you in a little while. Thanks for coming back, jumping in chat, tuning in. Hopefully things have went well for you. So yeah, that's part of the research that I've done. I also want you to notice something else. We'll start in 2021. Phil Mickelson's a bit of an outlier here, but it still kind of fits. So the week before the PGA, he made the cut to a very clunker of a finish, but made the cut. 2020, WG St. Jude from Colin Morikawa, top 20. Always watching, just can't get off. Well, I appreciate it, Rich. I really do. But thanks for jumping in chat tonight. Glad you could catch live. So, again, Wells Fargo from Phil Mickelson made the cut to a clunker. Colin Morikawa, top 20, the event before. 2019, Brooks Koepka, top 5. Brooks Koepka again, top 5. 2017, Justin Thomas, top 30. Baltusrol, Jimmy Walker, top 15. Let's see, Jason Day, Whistling Straits, top 15. I don't have 2014. Rory won his event before the PGA. Jason Duffner, 2013 had come in the top 5, I believe, in the Bridgestone. I didn't bring that in. And then 2012, Rory, I don't have here, but I have the data somewhere else where we'll go later tonight. Rory in 2012 made the cut. I believe it was a pretty high finish as well, but we'll see that data later. So all of this is a long-winded way to say that I'm definitely going to have some big green performance. We're going to look at that tonight heavily in the Data Dive show, and that these former winners, at least dating back to 2012, had very good form, or at least recent form. Again, Phil Mickelson kind of being the exception, but he's still top 25 of the Masters not too long before the PGA. But most of these players, I mean, Colin Morikawa had won the Workday the previous month. Brooks had 2 top 5s the 2 weeks prior to the PGA. Brooks again had a top 5, won the U.S. Open earlier that year. Justin Thomas had a top 10 a couple of months prior. So good form so far in just this one tab of research that I've done, and I've done a little bit more, which we'll hit later on in the show. But I wanted to lead off the show with that and explain why we're going to look at a few of the things that we are, at least to start. So let's go ahead and move to Fantasy National. And pardon me while I switch things around and get the views set up. I believe you all have that. Yeah, okay. So I went ahead and went to June 1st of last year just to grab enough rounds around bent green performance. That's what I was doing before coming on live, and didn't mess with any of the filters, so just kept it on that and removed the bent. So first thing we're going to do, because I started the show with that, let's look at bent green performance since June 1st of last year. And the reason I'm going June 1st, it's also the week after the PGA last year, but a lot of the performances of the spreadsheet that you just saw, the PGA was played in August, and some of the best or big bent green tournaments, the Memorial, the Charles Schwab, used to be the WGC Bridgestone. Those were played on bent green courses leading into the PGA. With the PGA now in May, the Memorial is played in June. Charles Schwab played in June, so we don't have enough bent green performance, or at least measured bent green performance. All we have so far from this calendar year is the Masters, which we don't get the data to, and then only because the venue changed thanks to the President's Cup, we have the Wells Fargo at TPC Potomac, and last week at the Byron Nelson. Now we do have a few fall events too, but I went ahead and went all the way back to June 1st just so we could get enough data. So we've got 34 rounds from Patton Kizzire on bent greens, but most guys have at least anywhere between 16 and 26 or so, 14. You get some of these guys down here that have maybe 10 or 8, a lot of the Euros and such. So just enough data to get a comprehensive view. So your best bent green performers in the past calendar year, dating from June 1st to today, those players are Patrick Cantlay, Alex Noren, Troy Merritt, Seamus Power, Rory, Kevin Na, Christian Bezadenhout, Mac Hughes, Ricky Fowler, and Keith Mitchell. I have not put any green speed filter on this yet. I think it would be safe to say that the greens will at least be fast, maybe even lightning, but I can't confirm that. So I don't want to lead myself astray, lead you all astray if I put in fast and lightning or lightning and it turns out to be average. I'm a gambling man, so I would be willing to bet a fair share of money that it won't be Velcro, but I can't confirm that it won't be average. So that's why I'm hesitant on adding any green speed filter. So just looking at bent green performance. But there's a look at the top bent performers in the past calendar year. Now let's narrow this in, because this is all rounds. Let's narrow this into the last 12 rounds. Ideally, that would be 3 tournaments, but some guys may miss the cut and yada yada. So who's got the best hot bent putter right now? So if we narrow this into the last 12 rounds, the best bent green putters are Patrick Cantlay, Rory, Harry Higgs, Christian Bezadenhout, Seamus Power, K.H. Lee, Eric Van Rooyen, Abraham Ancer, Maverick McNeely, and Jason Kokrak. So Ricky falls just outside the top 10. We have a big jump from Harry Higgs. K.H. Lee rises thanks to his win at the Byron Nelson last week. Yes, those statistics are in. So if I think it's prudent, or if you all would like to see them, I can bring them up throughout the show. Seamus Power is still there. His win at the Barbasol last year makes a lot of sense. Rory won at the CJ Cup this fall on bent greens. Abraham Ancer, his 12 rounds. Wells Fargo was not great. Then he was at the CJ Cup, very, very good there. And the BMW, very, very good there. So there is a look at some very recent bent green performance. I think that might do it, unless you all want to see any more bent green splits. If you want to see anything specific, yeah, you know what? Let's do one thing in the putting in bent greens. Let's do 3 putt avoidance on bent greens. And I'm going to go back out to all rounds just to give a comprehensive view, a full view of different styles of tournaments. So your best 3 putt avoiders on bent greens are Seamus Power, Tony Finau, Lanto Griffin, Joaquin Niemann, Xander, Alex Noren, Ricky Fowler, Anirban Lahiri, Eric Van Rooyen, and Cameron Davis. So a different group of names here. Tony Finau, first that we have mentioned here. Niemann, Griffin. Noren's always a very good putter on bent in general, but I think this might be the first time he's in the top 10. Lahiri. Van Rooyen's been there a lot. Ricky Fowler's been there a lot. I think it might be the first time for Xander as well. Seamus Power has been there in all 3. So some of these names are starting to really pop and make a lot of consistent high places on rankings list when you're considering bent green performance. So I believe that will do for the bent green focus. So I'm going to come back into the main page here. I'm going to take off bent green filter. One of the things that we looked at was difficult courses or difficult rounds. We looked at long courses. So I'm going to go ahead and set this for the 2022 PGA Tour season and adjust if we need to, just so we can get enough data for everybody. So let's go ahead and look at long courses first. We looked at this a little bit last night. Looks like there's only maybe 9 to 13-ish rounds or so. So I'm going to have to take this filter off for long courses just so we can get enough data for these guys to make it worth our investigation. Let's see, did much change? I don't think it did. We've got long, 6-1. All right. Well, your best performers, your top performers on long courses dating back to June 1st of last year. Those players are Scotty Scheffler, Cameron Smith, Jon Rahm, Will Zalatoris, Sung Jae, Rory, Ryan Bream, Colin Morikawa, Chad Ramey, and Matt Jones. Not a lot of surprise here. Ryan Bream, his win at the Puerto Rico, a long course. Let's see. Chad Ramey, his win at the Corrales, a long course. Let's see. It's really throwing me that there's only this many, like 13, 15 rounds on long courses. Interesting. Yeah, okay. Let's see. So there's a look at your top performers on long courses. Let's go ahead and take a look at difficult courses or difficult rounds. So when scoring is difficult in the past calendar year, oh yeah, you got plenty of data here now with, in the upper teens to 20s. So your top performers on or in difficult rounds in the past calendar year. Those players are Colin Morikawa, Scotty Scheffler, Jon Rahm, Rory, DJ, Louis Oosthuizen, Shane Lowry, Cam Smith, Daniel Berger, and Seamus Power. And Richard, you mentioned that you watch every show, just not able to catch live. Hopefully you got the list of guys who have withdrawn already. But for those who have not heard or didn't catch it last night, there have been 7 players that I have seen that have withdrawn. And by all means, if you have more information or if it comes out while the show is live, by all means, post it in chat. I don't want to miss it and lead you all astray. But the 7 names that I know that have withdrawn: Sung Jae, Paul Casey, Davis Love III, Phil Mickelson, Harris English, Higa, I can't remember his first name, Japanese player, Higa, and Jimmy Walker. So those 7 I do know have withdrawn. So for example, Fantasy National still has Sung Jae in here. He has withdrawn. Paul Casey. I did not want to. Well, apparently we were going to go to Cameron Tringali. Paul Casey has withdrawn as well. So there you go. Just making sure you are aware of the withdrawal so far. But there's a look at the top performers when it's difficult. Let's see. Anyone who knows me, and I think this tournament's going to really, major championships generally do, but strokes gained approach are definitely going to be the biggest factor, I believe. So I'm going to bring this into the start of this calendar year, January 1st of 2022, gathering all rounds just to get a full comprehensive view. Most players have at least 20 rounds. So your top strokes gained approach players since the start of this calendar year, 1/1/22. Those players are Russell Henley, Shane Lowry, Will Zalatoris, Victor Hovland, JT, Hideki, Scotty Scheffler, Jordan Spieth, Jon Rahm, and Cameron Tringali. Again, skipping Paul Casey since he has withdrawn. Mito, we have him at 20th, 15th in scrambling, 13th in shots gained approach. I have him at 20th, so by no means very far off. Just curious where you got the 13th. If there's a filter that I have missed, or maybe you added. But yes, I certainly concur that Mito is one heck of a ball striker. evidenced by his elite performances lately. But there is a look at the strokes gained approach. Something else that I think will absolutely come into play. We looked through Pro Visualizer, at least I looked through Pro Visualizer. You all were stuck on a few holes here and there. Stats. Did you click on him? Let's see. Strokes gained. Approach proximity. Okay. Byron Nelson, very good. Not sure what you mean by stats. PGA Tour, maybe. Yeah. Just not sure what you mean by stats. Or if that's where, I guess, stats. But I was mentioning how we went through Pro Visualizer and looked at hole by hole. So I think off the tee is going to be very, very important, finding fairways and distance. The course is actually not as narrow as I thought it was going through Pro Visualizer. I did watch a video earlier today, and I will make sure I either put that link in the description or pin the comment. But I saw it on YouTube, but I essentially just Google searched Southern Hills course, like overview or course look or whatever, and it took me to a YouTube video from, I believe it was Golf Digest. Again, I will put that link in the description or pin the comment. That way I don't misattribute it. But I think it was Golf Digest. It was very interesting. So let me get through this off the tee, and then I'll explain what I saw there. So strokes gained off the tee in that same time frame from January 1st, 2022 forward. Your top off the tee players: John Rahm, Cameron Young, Cameron Champ, Corey Connors, Max Homa, Joaquin Niemann, Keith Mitchell, Chris Kirk, Sung Jae, and Keegan Bradley. So John Rahm here, 1st and 10th off the tee and strokes gained approach, meaning number 1 in ball striking. Surprisingly, Keegan, 10th and 14th. So 10th in ball striking. Justin Thomas down here, 20th and off the tee, 5th in approach, makes him 3rd in ball striking. Interesting stuff here. I think this is going to be a pretty good ball strikers course. But to get into that video, I mentioned how I was going to have to research the bunkerage, the greens, since I just didn't know anything about the course. So the video that I saw led me to believe that the bunkers are pretty darn deep. They should be okay to play out of, just major style difficult bunkers. Nothing unplayable, I would say, or completely penalizing. So sand saves might be something you want to look at, but to Richard's point earlier, scrambling, definitely going to be something that you'd want to look at, and we'll take a look at later. But the greens, while the greens weren't undulating, they were sloped, meaning there were quite a few greens that were, say, heavily sloped from left to right or back to front. And one of the big takeaways that I got from the video, and again, I'll make sure I'll link it in the description or put it in the comments, that the edges of the greens have been rolled to where if you are not hitting the center of the green, essentially, your approach shot or whatnot is going to roll away from the green. And a lot of times they've designed that to roll into a bunker, or even the tributary that runs through the entire course. So I kept mentioning last night how it looked like a tributary would cross here or whatnot. In the video, they explained that a lot of the reason they took out some trees was to bring that tributary more into play. and I believe it was hole 2 or 3 where they specifically said that they have shaved the back of the green so very, shaved it close, tightly mown, that if a player is long with their approach shot, it is going to go into that tributary. So a lot of the greens are like that, where the edges are essentially false fronts, like all sides of the green, or at least the impression I got, all of the greens were essentially false sided, if that makes sense. So players are going to have to play essentially to the middle of the greens, is what I was gathering from that video. But there's a look at off the tee performance. I think that's going to be a very big statistic to look at this week. Let's take a look quickly at off the tee and approach when scoring is difficult, just to give us a pretty good idea of who rises in the most extreme of circumstances. So I'm just going to sort on off the tee, and we'll look at approach as well going across. I'm not going to resort everything. So your top off the tee players when it is difficult: Keegan Bradley, Cameron Young, John Rahm, Rory, Victor Hovland, Tom Hoge, Matt Fitzpatrick, Corey Connors, Tony Finau, and Max Homa. And Sergio. So Max Homa and Sergio tied for 10th. So some of those players that are very good with approaches as well in difficult rounds. You got Keegan, 1st and 14th, 1st and off the tee, 14th and approach. You have John Rahm, 3rd and 1st. Victor Hovland, 5th and off the tee, 17th and approach. Corey Connors, 8th and 18th. Max Homa, 10th and 5th, 5th in approach. Luke List, 18th and off the tee, 3rd in strokes gained approach. Mito, 15th off the tee, 16th in approach when it's difficult. Brian Harman, 14th and off the tee, 15th in strokes gained approach. So good stuff there. I think that's going to do it for the overview or review from last night. I don't like to do it. Actually, you know what? There's one more thing. I apologize. We saw Windfinder last night. It looked to be pretty crazy. I have not updated Windfinder for today. I'll make sure to do that tomorrow and show you all Wednesday. I imagine there will be some wind in my final mixed condition model. I just haven't looked at it today. So your top performers when or in moderate and windy conditions since the start of the calendar year. So from 1/1/22 forward, your top performers in the wind: Justin Thomas, Shane Lowry, Keegan, Scotty Scheffler, John Rahm, Joaquin Niemann, Cam Smith, Hideki, Adam Scott, Gary Woodland, and Alex Noren. So a lot of these same names. The tougher conditions generally add to the wind. The players was in the wind, tournaments like that. Apologies for the ice. I had golf league tonight, so I am refueling on the water. I think that's going to finally end the overview that I wanted to do, if I can ever clear all these filters and then stop adding them. I don't like to do it, but let's switch back to Microsoft Excel, and we're going to look at some of the key statistics that I had found throughout some research today, and then come back to Fantasy National. So one moment as I switch the view again on you all. I apologize. Actually, just because I've just noticed this, I had wanted to kind of start the show with it, but it's actually a pretty good segue. Course composition or whole yardages chart that Fantasy National puts together. I decided not to do the proximity just because Pro Visualizer has this course, 100 to 150 yards shorter than what it's going to be the PGA is just going to lengthen that course, so didn't want to lead anybody astray or give some incorrect data. So I didn't mess with any of the estimated approaches. It's a major. We're going to look at 200 plus essentially. But here are at least on the scorecard, the number of holes that fall into the various buckets on Fantasy National. So you have one extremely short par 3 from 150 to 175. You've got a long-ish par 3 in between 200 and 225. I believe it's 216 on the scorecard. And then you have the two very long par 3s, one at 231 and one at 253. Or maybe it's 233 and 251. 230 plus and 250 plus here in these par 3s. You have 3 short par 4s, one that the video said could be drivable. Depends on if the player wants to take on the creek before the green. So I will defer to the video on that one. But you have 3 short par 4s. You have 2 from 400 to 450, 5 from 450 to 500, and 2 that are 500 plus, one of them being 527 yards. So 2 very long par 4s, 5 long par 4s. So 12 of the holes here at Southern Hills being par 4s. We're going to put some high emphasis on par 4s this week. And then the par 5s, you've got a long par 5 at 636 or so, and then one that's measured at 652 or 656 or something ridiculous. That's a true 3-shot par 5. So 2 very long par 5s to wrap up the chart from Fantasy National. Again, these are from the scorecard that I read from last night. So as promised, there is the course composition chart, for lack of better terminology. I'm going to go ahead and close that because I will absolutely get confused. So we're going to look at mainly 450 to 500, maybe some 500 plus par 4s, and then honestly, I think I would, because most courses don't have par 5s in this length, it'd probably be prudent to look at these 2 lengths of par 5s. So that's what we're going to do, and probably the long par 3s. We're just probably just going to look at long everything, long par 3s, long par 4s, long par 5s. So I'm going to now come to a tab here that I've gathered. So this is any PGA championship since 2012 that has been both difficult and long. And this is a loose definition by me. If half the rounds or more were difficult, I considered it difficult. Now, yes, you had Whistling Straits that had a round that was easy. Valhalla had a round that was easy. But I still counted it as difficult since half the rounds were difficult. Now, you may disagree or whatnot. That's fine. Just explaining to you why I've included the data. So, any PGA championship that was difficult and long. And again, I added a course if it was half the rounds over 7,400. So you see Beth Page in 2019 only had 2 rounds that were over 7,400, but I still considered it long, considering the 72 to 7,400 was probably in the high 7,300s. So that is why I included that one. And then anybody who remembers Kiowa last year, even though Fantasy National didn't have the length, it was about 7,700 yards, and they played it in 2012 as well. So there are 7 PGA championships in this data that I'm about to show you. And there is a look at them. So you had Pete Dye, architect in 3 of them. Valhalla was a Jack Nicklaus design, but we had I didn't bring it over. These are bent. And Valhalla, I believe, is a par 71. So you had bent, Bermuda, POA, and Bermuda, and then a bunch of 70s and 71s with a couple of 72s at Kiowa and Whistling Straits. Essentially, I just brought it in if it was a long and difficult PGA championship. So what I've done, I have gathered all of those statistics that I usually do for a tournament, broken them out for you all. So what I have done here is these are the performances specifically in those tournaments, in those 7 tournaments. So again, 2020 not in here. TPC Harding Park was a short course. 2018 Belle Reve short or mid-length. 2013 was Oak Hill, something to that effect. It's very short. So this data, again, is only from these 7 tournaments. Only from these 7. So that's why when you see somebody like Jon Rahm, who is not very high, he's only played in 3 of those 7 majors, and he's missed the cut in 1. So again, this is not saying that Jon Rahm has been terrible at PGA championships. He's not played those well in the past, those 7. Apologies, I had some highlighting going on. So what we have here, the performance in those 7, and I have sorted it by finish or best finish, average finish, like I normally do. I have not removed any of the withdrawals, so I'll make sure to note those. But Harry Higgs had played in 1 PGA championship that has been long and difficult. He finished 4th in it, but somebody like Brooks, who has won 2 PGAs, 1 in that sample, average finish of 7th. Jason Day has a win on one of those, I believe it was 2015, average finish of 16th. Ricky, average of a top 20 finish. Cantlay, Matsuyama, Louis. So these players, I went ahead and brought in all of their statistics from those PGA Tour events. So you can see here the propensity for off the tee, especially when the course is long and difficult. Cantlay 3 times, Day 6, these high levels of green, strokes gained approach. Will Zalatoris had a great tournament, his 1 time, but Brooks 4.63. Let's see, Ricky 2, Jason Day 4. In fact, just to make this a little bit easier, let's filter this for, no, I don't want to sort it, I want to filter. Let's filter this for guys who have at least played 2 of them. There we go. All right, so you've got Day, Ricky, like I mentioned, Patrick Cantlay, Louis, Justin Rose. High in the off the tee, there's Rory, very high off the tee. Corey Connors, DJ down here, off the tee. Let's see, some of the strokes gained approach. You got Brooks, Jason Day, Patrick Cantlay, Louis, Henrik Stenson. Very good in strokes gained approach on those long, difficult majors. Now, the form coming in is absolutely atrocious, but interesting nonetheless. Let's go ahead and move over to drives and fairways. I kind of like the idea of a good drive gained statistic for a major. Greens are going to be so darn important. And if you miss the green, we're going to want to look at scrambling. Unfortunately, previous years don't have scrambling per se, but we're just going to have to look at that in Fantasy National. So if you can hit the fairway and or hit the green, so I really like good drives gained. for a statistic in majors. Some of your top good drives gained players. Brooks, Abraham Answer's only played him twice, but it's done well. Some of these other names down here that might be sneaking up. Eric Van Rooyen, he's only 1 for 2 in these long PGA championships. Kevin Streelman, 2 for 4. Very good in good drives gained. Corey Connors, a lot of that predicated on the fairways and the green. I mean, no distance, but probably the top in good drives gained. Let's see. Greens, probably more of a product of good drives gained. I suppose we could look at distance. Brooks, obviously. Jason Day. Rory, obvious. Luke List. JT. DJ. Some of the culprits that you would expect. Finau, Adam Scott, maybe a little surprising. But it's showing that, some distance might be required here. Stinson's one of the few exceptions. Hitting a lot of fairways, hitting a lot of greens, not necessarily a lot of distance. Everyone knows that at the height of Stinson's power was his electric 3-wood that he would hit almost as far as most people's driver. Let's move over to birdies and bogeys. I was doing quite a bit of research today, and my initial thought, at least when a course is difficult, is to go with bogeys avoided. That way, if you're making pars, you're gaining strokes on the field. But a lot of this was birdies. Birdies gained on difficult courses seemed to be the more indicative stat. I mean, you see here, Brooks, more birdies than bogeys. Hideki, more birdies than bogeys. Even Jason Day and Ricky, they're pretty darn close to each other. Let's see, some other high finishers in majors. Justin Rose, more birdies. Henrik, pretty close. Aaron Rodgers is only twice. Casey's withdrawn, but he had more birdies than bogeys. Now, Spieth is more bogeys than birdies, which makes sense. He's a scrambler. Luke List, Gary Woodland. I'm trying to think of the champions that are in this data set. You've got Rory. You've got Brooks. Apologies, I'm going to have to come back here. Let's see. Kiowa last year was Phil. Beth Page in 2019 was Brooks. 2017... because Baltusrol was 2017 is Justin Thomas, Jimmy Walker, Jason Day, Rory. Okay. I think I'll remember that. So yeah, there's Rory. You've got Jason Day, Brooks. A lot of it being birdies, to be honest with you. A lot of it being birdies. Par threes. Again, this was all kind of dependent on course and various lengths of holes. Don't want to go too much into it, especially the par threes, par fives. Like no other course. Hopefully you can see that. There we go. No other course even had a par 5 that measured 650 plus. So there's not anything we can do with that. But I do want to highlight just the sheer importance of par 4s here. Brooks Koepka, probably the best major performer, at least in my golf fandom or golf paying attention. Look at the strokes from par 4s versus 3. So 7.2 in par 4s. 3.0 and 2.0 essentially in 3s and 5s combined. So his par 4s outweigh the 3s and the 5s combined. Abraham Answer, probably not the best. Jason Day, 6.3 to 2.5 and 2.0. So his par 4s outweigh the 3s and the 5s combined. Ricky, a little bit of an anomaly. His par fives are close to the par fours, but par fours are still his highest. Let's see, other champions. We've got Rory here, 4.75. Like, look at Rory's par threes. I mean, he's just almost field average. It's the par fours that he really gains on. Yeah, it's the par fours that he really gains on. 2 here, 0.4. I mean, he's double that in the par fours. This is a long-winded way of saying that par fours are going to be so astronomically important, especially since this is a par 70. Now we'll have to look and see what we think the most important range is. My guess would be this one, just because there's 5 holes from 450 to 500. Although I wouldn't be surprised if the 500 plus also play a factor. But the strokes gained par 4 are going to be so very important in major championship golf. One of the big things that I wanted to do, though, in a lot of this, not necessarily the par 3s, the par 4s, the par 5s, I wanted to look at fairways, I wanted to look at greens and driving distance. A lot of this was for proximity, and everyone who has followed me knows that proximity is still my least favorite thing to try to analyze. I just struggle with it, but I wanted to get a feel for how important 200 plus proximity is for these players, specifically ones that have played a lot of long PGA championships and played them well. And you can see, with a few exceptions, a lot of these guys are pretty darn good at 200 plus proximity, or at least they were that week. Brooks, 126. Stinson, 114. You got Paul Casey, granted he's not in, but 81. Like Matt Jones, minus 137. Now he's 4 for 4 and making the cut at these PGAs, but he's average finish of a 44th. Let's see. Others here. Let's go to Jason Day, 74. Rory, 54. It's another champion down here. Phil, pretty decent in the positive. Justin Thomas is the lowest of these 200 plus, but he's still in the positive. And the proximity total as well. You have to come down to looks like Corey Connors. No, Patrick Reed. Okay, Patrick Reed. You have to come down to Patrick Reed before you get to a negative in total proximity. And even Patrick Reed is still positive in 200 plus. So 200 plus is going to be very important. I still think proximity is going to be, or total proximity is going to be pretty important. But I wanted to bring all of that data together to really try to narrow in on some of the statistics that we think is going to play a big factor. And that's why I wanted to switch from Excel, or from Fantasy National to Excel, to analyze this spreadsheet and explain why we're going to look at the things we do in Fantasy National. So I'm going to leave this up. I am going to unfilter and bring back the players who have only played it once, or played these long PGA championships once. But I am hoping for the last time we're going to switch back to Fantasy National. So give me a second there. Haha. All right, so now that we have a feel for some of the statistics that we're wanting to scrutinize tonight, let's go ahead and move into birdies and bogeys. And again, I really feel that it is going to be more birdies than bogeys. But let's bring up the prior leaderboards and I'll show you why. Kiowa, long, difficult. We'll bring up that tab. Last year, a lot of it was bogeys, but look at Phil, 10.1, clearly the highest of anything birdies and bogeys. So 10.1, 7, 6, where your highest bogeys was 7.5, and you tailed off fairly quickly. I mean, you had some decent correlation here from Kim, M, Gary Woodland, Louis, but the birdies much higher in terms of strong correlation. So, Winner was the leader in birdies gained. You had a top 10, a top 20. Yeah. So while you had more birdies or negative in the birdies gained, they were certainly small in comparison. But you only have one. So this year might have been a bogeys avoided. Let's go to 2019, I believe, was a long. Beth Page was long. And we'll go to birdies and bogeys. Yep. See, birdies gained 9.5. And look at this correlation: first, second, top 10, 20, middling, top 5, top 10. Whereas if you go bogeys, very, very strong. This one's bogeys avoided this year pretty clearly. Let's see. 2017? Let's see. 2018. Which one was that? That was Belle Reeve, short. Yeah, so 2017. Quail Hollow, Justin Thomas's year. Birdies and bogeys. There's the birdies right here. You've got 8.6 from JT. You've got 7.8 from Ricky in the bogeys avoided. So birdies here, 2016 is Baltusrol, Jimmy Walker, 7.7. So, I mean, they're both important, don't get me wrong. I still think it's going to be birdies gained, but it's a lot closer than what I had thought I had seen earlier today. So, all right. It's definitely not Eagles, clearly. Maybe it's a little bit of both. I'm still leaning towards birdies gained. But with that, I'm going to reset this, come back to 2021. Let's go ahead and look at birdies and bogeys, and let's not even fool around here. I'm going to go straight into difficult. I have this still set from the beginning of this calendar year. That is 15 rounds. It's just going to have to be enough because I don't think going all the way back to June 1st really changes anything. Okay. Yeah, 30. Yeah, let's do that. So the difficult rounds going back to June the 1st of last year. So your top birdies gained players in difficult rounds from June 1st of last year to now. Those players are Scotty Scheffler, Cam Smith, Colin Morikawa, Rory, Jason Kokrak, Shane Lowry, DJ, Sergio, John Rahm, and Louis. The players who are good at both, or top 10 in both birdies and bogeys, you have Colin Morikawa, 3rd and 2nd. Shane Lowry, 6th and 4th. DJ, 6th and 5th. John Rahm, 8th and 8th when it's difficult. Okay. Let's take that off. Let's look at long courses over the same time frame from June 1st of last year to now. This is going to have to do just 15, anywhere from 10 to 15 rounds. So your top birdies gained players on long courses since June 1st of last year forward. Cam Smith, Bo Hostler, Chad Ramey, Scotty Scheffler, Will Zalatoris, JJ Spawn, Russell Henley, Adam Hadwin, Justin Thomas, John Rahm, and Matt Kuchar. Matt Kuchar on long courses, top 10 in birdies gained. That surprises me, but facts are facts. Again, apologies for the ice. So the players that are top 10 in both birdies gained and bogeys avoided on long courses, there's only two. Bo Hostler, 2nd in birdies gained, 6th in bogeys avoided on long courses. And Scotty Scheffler, 3rd in birdies, 2nd in bogeys. So a little bit of overlap here. Cam Smith on the difficult and the long Scheffler, Will Z, JT, John Rahm. If we combine the two filters, don't know how many rounds we're going to get. Yeah, see, that's pretty narrow. You only have anywhere from 4 to 9 rounds being the max. Like, I just don't feel comfortable with that, with combining the two. To me, it's too narrow. Let's see. I believe that's probably all that we're going to want to do with this. I tell you what, I'll take a look at opportunities gained when it's difficult. That could glean some information here. So your top opportunities gained players when it is difficult since June 1st of last year. You've got Colin Morikawa, Rory, Cam Young, Hideki, John Rahm, Keegan, Tom Hoge, Taylor Gooch, Daniel Berger, and Webb Simpson. So a few new names here. First time we've mentioned Hoge, I think, tonight. First time we've mentioned Taylor Gooch, Daniel Berger, and Webb Simpson tonight. I mentioned last week how some things would have to normalize as a lot of the players were giving themselves opportunities and were very low in the birdies or better gained, or vice versa, where they were gaining a lot of birdies or better but not giving themselves a lot of opportunities. Something there would have to normalize. So someone like Tom Hoge is giving themselves a whole lot of opportunities. They are not converting on them when it is difficult. You would expect this to normalize or come closer together. You would like to think that the 103 would come closer to the 7th if he's going to give himself this many opportunities, that eventually he will cash them in. Conversely, it could be the fact that he's playing as best as he can and it's just going to decline. And this number will come closer to the 103. But I am more in the thought process of he's given himself a lot of opportunities. It's just a matter of time before he cashes them in, especially in the birdie market. So somebody that stands out, Tom Hoge, 7th in opportunities, but 97th in birdies. Brian Harman, 16th in opportunities, but 67th in birdies. Billy Horschel has a lot of distance between him. Phil is out. We'll throw that one out there. Christian Bezadenhout, a lot of opportunities, does not convert them. The other end of the spectrum, guys who are not giving themselves a lot of opportunities but are cashing them in at a very high rate. You've got Cameron Tringale, very, very poor at giving himself opportunities, but top 20 in birdies gained. Louis Oosthuizen, 97th in opportunities gained, top 10 in birdies gained. Sergio, 8th in birdies gained, does not give himself a lot of opportunities. Bubba Watson, 11th in birdies gained, does not give himself a lot of opportunities. So interesting to see the two compare and contrasts there. I'd be interested to hear from you all. Put it in the comments. Which do you think is more accurate? Do you think guys that give themselves a lot of opportunities and don't cash them in, like Tom Hoge, do you think the birdies start, like this number starts rising and they get better? Or do you think that this number starts to decline? Would be curious to hear your all's thoughts on that. Realize that we're about 5 minutes over normal time, so we're going to speed this up just a bit. I did promise a little bit of a longer show from last night, so we'll come back here to Fantasy National. Let's go to the fairways and greens. Again, I think it's good drives gained, but we'll take a look at distance, good drives gained, definitely scrambling gained. So let's start with that. When it is difficult, your top scramblers, when it is difficult, you have Justin Thomas, Cameron Tringale, Daniel Berger, Kevin Streelman, Patrick Cantley, Harris English, Charles Schwartzel, Matt Fitzpatrick, Aaron Wise, Ian Poulter, Brian Harman, and Christian Bezadenhout. If I take off the difficult filter, is Mito pretty high up there? There he is. There's 13th. So to your point, Richard, 13th in scrambling gained, but that is not in the when it is difficult. With this being a major championship, I'm definitely going to be adding the difficult filter, and Mito, when it is difficult, still very good, falls to 33rd. But I do like what you're looking at there with Mito, and along the same kind of lines that I'm thinking, scrambling, strokes gained approach. That's the first thing that we needed to look at on this tab, since we don't get scrambling gained in prior tournaments. So with the difficult filter still on, and from June 1st forward, let's take a look at good drives gained, and then we'll look at distance and greens. But good drives gained since June 1st of last year, when it is difficult. Your top performers are Corey Connors, Shane Lowry, Tom Hoagie, Joel Damon, John Rahm, Colin Morikawa, Luke List, Adam Schenk, Mac Hughes, and Patrick Cantlay. Again, skipping Sungjae since he is out. All right. The players who were top 10 in good drives gained, majority of them are top 10 or very close in greens and regulation. Tom Hoagie and Joel Damon being the two outliers in greens when it's difficult. But the only two that are very high in distance when it is difficult and yet still have a good drive gained, John Rahm and Luke List. John Rahm makes a whole lot of sense. Number 2 in the world. Some would argue still the best player in the world. Luke List might be a bit surprising, but he did win the Farmers earlier this season. Long regarded as a difficult course. It's long. That could suit to his advantage. Now, with him being 116th in fairways, that is not going to work this week. He will absolutely have to be able to hit fairways if he's going to succeed. But the numbers here are, they look kindly on Luke List. Let's see. We got Russell Knox here, who's good at greens and fairways, but not in distance. Let's see if we can find players that are good in all 3 or 4. We mentioned John Rahm. Shane Lowry, he is top, maybe 3rd in distance and fairways, number 2 in good drives, and number 7 in greens. So very well balanced there. The aforementioned John Rahm. Colin Morikawa, he is top half in distance. A lot of people think that he doesn't have a lot of distance. So he has enough distance. That's why he wins majors. He has enough distance. He's in the top half, but 10th in fairways, 7th in good drives gained, number 1 in greens when it's difficult. So a lot to like with Colin Morikawa on this tab. Let's see. Xander, 21st in distance, 47th in fairways, 23rd good drives, and 15th in greens. So again, a lot to like there. Maybe one more here. Davis Riley, we highlighted him last night. Victor works. 49th, 18th, 21st, and 42nd. So, okay. So that'll be it for that tab. Let's move on to proximity. We're definitely going to be looking at 200 plus. I am going to remove the difficult filter though, and just take a look at pure 200 plus proximity. It's going to get narrowed in for the final mixed condition model. Just being honest, I'm a bit lazy trying to get through all these tabs. So I'm going to keep it from June 1st forward. There's about 60-ish rounds for some people. Sungjae has 83. Granted, he's out. But your top performers on 200 plus approaches since June 1st forward, June 1st of last year, forward. Will Zalatoris, John Rahm, Hideki, Bryson, Adam Scott, Mr. Kick Me in the Nuts, Victor Hovland, Luke List, Sebastian Munoz, and Garrick Higgo. All right. Guys who are good at the 200 plus, who are also tops in total proximity. John Rahm, second in total procs, second in 200 plus. Hideki, 9th and 2nd. Victor Hovland, 8th and 7th. Sebastian Munoz, 20th in total procs, 9th in 200 plus. Colin Morikawa, Tony Finau, each of them just outside the top 10 in both. Cameron Young's inside the top 20 in both. Hoagie is up there, pretty good in both. Justin Thomas is good up there in both. So, again, apologies just to being a tad bit lazy, trying to get through these tabs here. I think 200 plus is going to be the main focus for this week in proximity. I'm going to skip the par threes. We'll go to the par fours. Actually, I shouldn't do that. Let's go to the par threes. Let's look at long par threes. Long par threes from 200 to 225. From June 1st to today, you've got Zach Johnson, Sam Burns, Jason Kokrak, Taylor Gooch, Abraham Ancer, Will Zalatoris, Chris Kirk, Mr. Kick Me in the Nuts, DJ, and Brandon Grace. The number one player, actually, in 200 to 225 par threes is out. Harris English, still not healthy. The players that are great are top 10 in both 200 to 225 and 225 plus is only one. It's Zach Johnson. You have Taylor Gooch is 5th and 13th. DJ is 10th and 23rd. Luke List 19th and 4th. And Tom Hoagie 20th and 5th. All right. So good stuff there for the par threes. Now we'll go to the par fours. Just going to look at total par fours and then the long. So your best performers in par four performance, June 1st forward: John Rahm, Justin Thomas, Patrick Cantlay, Rory, Seamus Power, Daniel Berger, Louis, Cam Smith, Cameron Young, and Scotty Scheffler. Let's see. The two longest yardages of par fours, the 450 to 500 and 500 plus. John Rahm, first, and second. Seems pretty good. Justin Thomas, second, and fourth. Cantlay, 3rd, 6th, and 10th. Rory, 4th, 5th, 7th. Louis, 6th, 17th, and 13th. Colin Morikawa, 16th, and 3rd. All right. There you go. There's the players that jump out as great at all three total 450 to 500 and 500 plus. And then finally, we'll look at par 5 efficiency. We're just going to look at the two long par 5 lengths. So par 5s, 600 to 650. Your top performers: Bryson, DJ, Brendan Steele, Keith Mitchell, Cameron Champ, Mark Leishman, Taylor Gooch, Adam Schenk, Colin Morikawa, and Chad Ramey. And none of those players are top 10 in 650 plus. The only one that's close is out. Morikawa is 18th in 650 plus par 5s. Bryson's 29th. With the 656 yard par 5, I imagine that's going to be in the 600 to 650 range at least a day or two. So honestly, I'm thinking that we'll just focus on this length of par 5s, the 600 to 650. I think that would be probably the best for this week at the PGA. So that is going to do it for the Data Dive show tonight. Went over a little bit to hopefully make up for last evening and the stream having cut short. Guys, thanks for tuning in. I always appreciate the support, you taking out the time to listen and watch. Richard, thanks for jumping in chat. I'm glad you were able to catch live tonight. It was good to chat with you a little bit. Hopefully you'll be able to make it live again soon. Don't forget, Wednesday will be the DFS Tactics show. If you are interested in doing a live stream or watching me do some research or us interact while I'm doing research, generally Tuesdays are the day that I do a lot of research, a lot of digging in. If you would be interested in that, put it in the comments or reach out on social media. If that is something you're interested in, I would absolutely not mind setting up something. It would certainly be a lot less formal than a full show like this. I don't know if I would put it on YouTube per se, but maybe a Twitch stream or something. I don't know. But if you're interested, by all means, put it in the comments or reach out on social media. But thanks again for tuning in. For all of the wagers that you've made so far this week at the PGA Championship, for any wagers you're thinking about making this week at the PGA Championship, and until I see you Wednesday night for the DFS Tactics show, may all your bets be profitable.